Deep in the forest, two teenagers are getting intimate, exploring each other's bodies. But the moment is cut short when the boy finishes too soon, leaving the girl visibly frustrated. She says it felt weird. Annoyed, she gets dressed and steps outside to fix the tent. Before she can, strange rustling sounds come from the woods. Thinking it's her strict parents, she quickly ducks back inside the tent and tries to friend-zone the boy. But before the situation can settle, tension spikes as something sharp suddenly pierces through the tent, straight through the boy's hand. The teenagers scream as a masked figure bursts in, stabbing the boy repeatedly until he drops dead. The girl takes off, running for her life into the dark woods. But the killer is relentless. He catches up to her, pins her down, and she screams louder than ever before. Meanwhile, in a quiet church, a congregation gathers for mass. Among them, a girl named Cammy catches the eye of a boy standing nearby. He gives her a suggestive look, and she playfully flips him off in response. But their little exchange doesn't go unnoticed. The entire church turns to stare, leaving Cammy red-faced with embarrassment. After the service, as the church empties, Cammy is forced to stay behind as punishment, to stack chairs in the storeroom. While working, she runs into the same boy again. Their body language makes it clear they share some recent history, probably involving hands-on activities. The tension builds, but they get into a small argument about who should reach their high first. Cammy, ever the problem solver, offers to help while he takes care of himself, tempting him with a good time. Less than a minute later, the boy quickly spills his mayo. Cammy just stares at him, confused. Their awkward moment is interrupted when a church staff member stumbles upon them, probably sighing before silently apologizing to the Lord. Cammy's deeply disappointed father later meets with the head priest, venting about her behavior. He blames it on her mother's death, convinced that's why she's gone astray. Concerned, the priest suggests sending Cammy to the Beautiful Savior Treatment Center, a remote rehab facility for teenagers struggling with promiscuity. Despite Cammy's protests, her father and the priest aren't budging. Soon, Cammy and her father set off on a tense drive to the treatment center. The silence in the car is heavy, broken only by the sound of Cammy's anxious cat purring. When they arrive, the camp's remote location only adds to the uneasy feeling. There, they're greeted by the camp's overseers, Tani and her brother, Eugene. Together, the siblings run the program, setting the tone for what lies ahead. Before entering the camp, they place their hands on Cammy and say a prayer. As they tour the facility, Eugene and Tani explain the program's structure. Boys and girls are mostly kept separate, but occasionally brought together to help them build control and resist temptation. They claim this will teach the kids to reject their so-called sinful desires. Cammy then suddenly stops in her tracks. An attractive boy walks into the garden, and she's mesmerized. Eugene introduces him as Daniel, a student who was late to church because he left his Bible in his room. Daniel casually asks if they can have a campfire that night, and the siblings agree. Cammy, still staring at him, is very interested. The tour continues as Tani shows Cammy her room, mentioning that she'll get along great with her roommate, Wyatt. Cammy immediately pulls out her phone and asks for the Wi-Fi password. Tani confiscates it on the spot. No phones allowed. After her father leaves, Cammy ugly cries in the mirror. Meanwhile, four boys sneak a peek through an old pipe in the wall, hoping to catch a glimpse of the girls. Naturally, the conversation shifts to their body counts, but before they can compare notes, they bolt, spooked by Eugene approaching. Cammy soon gets to know the other girls at the camp. During their first Bible reading session, she ends up arguing with Tani after casually mentioning she had a spit roast not too long ago. The tension escalates, and as punishment, Tani sends Cammy and the rest of the group to the chapel to pray. While sitting in the dimly lit room, one of the girls, Allie, decides to share a creepy story connected to the camp's past. She tells them about a 17-year-old priest who once lived there. According to the story, he completely lost his mind one day and went on a killing spree, murdering everyone at the camp because he believed they were fornicating instead of praying. After the massacre, he disappeared into the surrounding forest and was never seen again. The group brushes it off as just another spooky campfire tale. Soon, Eugene shows up and tells them it's time to leave. It's boy prayer time, now. Later that night, Cammy and her roommate, Wyatt, spend time getting to know each other. Feeling rebellious, they decide to sneak out of their dorm. First, they search for their confiscated cell phones, then venture into the night. While wandering, they accidentally stumble upon Tani and Eugene, engaging in some very non-sibling behavior. Disturbed, the girls quickly leave, only to run into a boy and a girl fooling around in the woods. Wyatt takes off, but Cammy sticks around, watching as the girl, Mia, gets dressed, clearly annoyed that the guy, Rob, didn't get her where she needed to go. Suddenly, a rustling sound cuts through the night, snapping Rob out of his thoughts about not being good at breaking backs. He notices someone nearby, wearing a devil mask. Assuming it's just his friend Chris messing around, he lets his guard down. Before he can react, a blade slices across his abdomen. Cammy, seeing the terrifying scene, immediately screams. The masked killer turns to her. She bolts, sprinting back to the dorm and slamming the door shut just in time. She frantically tells Allie what she just saw. Allie, not wasting a second, opens the door and knocks Eugene out cold. Cammy explains everything to Eugene and Tani, but they don't believe her. She tries to get Mia to back her up, but Mia insists she was in her room all night. Refusing to let it go, Cammy offers to show them exactly where it happened. But when they arrive, there's nothing there. No body, no blood, just empty woods. Tani and Eugene tell her she should get some rest. Back in the dorm, Wyatt apologizes for not warning Cammy sooner about the strange things happening at the camp. She offers to show Cammy more of what's really going on, and after everything that just happened, they cuddle up for comfort. The next morning, Cammy wakes up to find Wyatt missing. She asks the other girls where she went, and they casually mention that she's with Tani. Then, they shift the conversation back to last night's events. Naturally, the first thing they ask about is Rob's eggplant. Cammy shuts them down, telling them to ask Mia instead. She got a front row seat, after all. Mia, feeling guilty, apologizes for lying. But an apology isn't enough after what Cammy witnessed. Meanwhile, Allie admits she completely made up the story about the teenage priest. There's no devil killer lurking in the woods. But Cammy is sure of what she saw. The girls, realizing she's dead serious, start wondering why Mia wasn't attacked. Mia hesitates before coming up with a theory. The killer might only target people who actually reach euphoria. In other words, she's indirectly admitting she didn't get there when Rob was breaking her back. The girls exchange disappointed looks, then decide to cheer Cammy up with a little entertainment. They lead her to a hidden peephole in the wall, one with a perfect view into the boys' showers. Cammy takes a peek. Inside the boys' bathroom, Daniel, Chris, and Toby gossip about Cammy and her assets. Daniel, trying to sound deep, says he cares more about a girl's personality and intellect. After their girl talk, Daniel asks if anyone's seen Rob. The others assume he got caught sneaking out and is now getting punished by Eugene. Daniel heads off to look for him, while Chris, who's definitely giving fruity vibes, agrees to help lather him up. Meanwhile, Cammy sneaks another peek through the hole, only for Eugene to pop up out of nowhere, scaring her and the girls off. In the chaos, Cammy gets separated from the others, but Wyatt soon finds her and leads her away. Wyatt shows Cammy around the camp's perimeter, giving her a glimpse of hope when she sees the fences. Before she can even think about climbing over, Wyatt yanks her back and chucks a stick at the fence. It zaps instantly. Turns out, Wyatt already learned that lesson the hard way. After that little science experiment, Wyatt leads Cammy to a hidden storage building she discovered while searching for the power source of the fence. Unfortunately, she never found it. No power switch, no phone, no way out. Suddenly, they hear movement outside. Cammy, on edge, grabs a figurine and hurls it as soon as someone steps in, only to realize it's Daniel. She quickly apologizes, and soon, Chris and Toby join them. Chris, being Chris, suggests a 5-sum. Toby, who's clearly crushing on Chris, is down bad and immediately volunteers. Cammy, completely ignoring that nonsense, warns them about the killer and what happened to Rob. They refuse to believe her. She insists they need to get out of here and forms a plan, distract Tani and Eugene long enough to steal their phones from the cabin. Before they can act, Tani catches them. Noticing the hidden storage, she demands to know who found it. Everyone stayed silent, so she grabs Wyatt's injured hand and presses down, hard. Wyatt cries out in pain, but no one speaks up. Not wanting her friend to suffer, Cammy takes the blame, lying that she brought everyone here to fornicate. Tani loves that answer. As punishment, Cammy is forced to kneel on sharp stones while the others clean the chapel. Tani warns that if Cammy moves, the others will join her. Eugene looks uncomfortable but, as always, stays quiet. A dog on Tani's leash. While cleaning the chapel, Eugene steps out for a bathroom break. telling the others to return to their rooms afterward. Wyatt, still pissed about what happened to Cammy, reassures the boys that they'll follow through with the plan. She and Chris leave, but Toby stays behind, hiding in the confession booth. There, he pulls out an explicit magazine and enjoys some alone time. After finishing, he disgustingly wipes his hand on the curtains. That's when he hears footsteps. Thinking it's Chris, he calls out, but no answer. A shadow looms outside the booth. Before he can react, a blade impales him. His lifelong wish to be penetrated has been granted. Through the pain, he looks up, locking eyes with a devil mask on the other side of the confessional. Before he can scream, the blade stabs through his mouth. Meanwhile, Cammy, exhausted and delirious from kneeling on stones all day, starts hallucinating. She sees her mother, wrists gushing blood, just like the day she took her own life. Cammy breaks down, pleading for forgiveness, mistaking Tawny for her mother. Chris, on his way to find Eugene, is suddenly yanked into a locker room by Allie. Neither of them realizes the masked killer is lurking nearby. Things quickly get heated between them. Chris, being his usual self, casually mentions that he's open to getting pegged. He then suggests that Allie, return the favor. Allie complains that she's always giving, never receiving. So, she flips the script, revealing her flower for Chris to farm her pollen. Chris is down bad. After finishing, Allie gets up to leave, but Chris wonders if she's gonna toss his salad too. She declines, and just like that, Chris seals his fate. Moments later, the masked killer appears and crushes his skull with a dumbbell. The next morning, Cammy wakes up with wrecked knees. She patches herself up, then steps into the hallway, just in time to see Daniel taking off his shirt for some yoga. She stops, stares, starts drooling. Then, for a split second, she imagines Wyatt in Daniel's place instead. Realizing her own gay panic, she quickly shakes it off and walks away. Cammy steps into the gym and immediately hears a crunch. She looks down. Chris' mangled corpse stares back at her. She lets out a blood-curdling scream, which sends everyone running to see what happened. Tawny and Eugene arrive but refuse to call the police, brushing it off with, "Chris is with God now." The teens, rightfully horrified, decide to take matters into their own hands. They hatch a plan to distract the Alabama siblings, stealing Eugene's keys so Cammy and Daniel can sneak into their cabin. Inside, they dig around and discover something worse. Their phones have been burnt to ash in the furnace. Before they can process that nightmare, Tawny and Eugene suddenly return. Cammy and Daniel scramble to hide. From their hiding spot, they witness something even worse than murder. Tawny and Eugene crossing a line no siblings should. Cammy and Daniel are traumatized for life. They noped out of there as soon as the siblings left. That night, the siblings cheerfully usher everyone to dinner, as if a literal murder didn't just happen. Then, out of nowhere, Bree drops dead, poisoned by the food. Instant chaos. The group turns on Tawny and Eugene, attacking them before bolting for the gate, only to find it locked. Panic sets in. Then, the masked killer steps out of the shadows. Mia is the first to go, taken down in seconds. The group scatters. Allie vanishes into the darkness. Daniel, impaled. Cammy and Wyatt, barely making it out alive, end up hiding in the storage room. With a killer on the loose, they do what any logical person would do. They have a heartfelt conversation in an emotional moment. They're soon spotted by the masked killer. Wyatt pushes Cammy out of the way, accidentally shoving her into a hidden panel in the wall. It swings open, revealing a secret lair. Inside, there are CCTV screens monitoring the entire camp, along with the control panel to unlock the gates. The screens also show videos of each teenager's parents, giving consent for their children to be sent to this creepy cult camp. Cammy, now pissed and traumatized, rushes out to find Allie, only to stumble straight into a full-blown cult ritual. Eugene and Allie are nailed down to a bench, helpless. Cammy, horrified, yanks the mask off one of the cult members. It's her father. Before she can even react, Tawny enters with another cult member, but the masked figure suddenly slits Tawny's throat for being sinful with her brother. Then the cult leader turns to Cammy. She rips off his mask. It's the priest from their church. He hands a blade to Cammy's father and commands him to cleanse his daughter by removing her impurity. Cammy's father hesitates. Then, instead of hurting her, he stabs himself. The priest, furious, lunges at Cammy to finish the job himself, but Wyatt swoops in, saving her at the last second. Together, they burn the priest alive. Cammy, Wyatt, Allie, and Eugene race into the woods, desperately trying to escape. Just in time, they save the spelling bee girl before she gets stabbed by yet another cultist.